Well, AmaZulu King Misuzulu, kaZwelithini, has had a turbulent rise to the throne. The 48-year-old has had to fend off opposition from enemies and his siblings to succeed his father in leading the largest monarchy in Africa. So while there are still some in the royal family who question the legitimacy of his ascension, tomorrow the government will officially recognize him as king. My co-anchor Ayanda Nyathi is at Moses Mabhida Stadium this morning, where the recognition of Misuzulu's kingship is going to be taking place. And in fact, he joins us live this morning without a tie. Ayanda, good morning. A bumpy ride, and there is still some resistance even today on the eve of this event taking place at Moses Mabhida Stadium.
Phenomenal one to think about it, Michelle, isn't it? Good morning once again, live to you here from a windy Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban. About 22 degrees at the moment. It's almost certainly going to rain, but many of the people we've spoken to here in the build-up to tomorrow's celebration actually see that as a good omen, a stamp of approval, if you like, from the ancestors to essentially allow tomorrow to take place in all its spectacular. But to what you've just asked, I mean, it's important for us to take stock of the journey that Misuzulu kaZwelithini has had to travel since the moment his father died. That's King Zwelithini kaZulu, and then a few weeks later his mother, Queen Manfombi. And since then we'd always been told that that's translated to, the ascension to the throne will always be contested. But this time it's happened in very unique ways because, for one, the media was able to get a front row seat of the back and fro with literally contradictory media briefings being held by very senior members of the royal family. And two, our very own Ayanda Nyathi also had the very unique opportunity to sit down with the king and get his thoughts about what this journey has been like. I mean, we were able to bring you some of those sentiments last night on In Focus, and he emphasized there his confidence that all the disagreements that we've seen, some of them still lingering at this very late stage, will eventually be overcome. But yesterday we got an opportunity to engage one of those senior royals, Prince Mbonisi, who is Misuzulu's uncle, who essentially outlined for him how he feels proper procedures weren't followed, and because of that, Misuzulu still can't be recognized as king, at least as far as he's concerned. Take a listen to what he had to say.
The reason why we say at the moment we don't have the king, because the process was not followed. You have portrayed it rightfully, saying that our concern was that the royal family never sat down and elect or appoint one of the king's sons as the king. That was not followed, because we, as his uncle, or in the terms of the Zulu word, O Baba Bake, they never sat down with the core royal family members, the ones that are supposed to deal with the matters. In saying that, we wish that the letter that was written by King Zwelithini appointing members of the Royal Council for them to deal with the matters that about his throne and the matters that tells the nation. Why are we sticking on it? That has to be honored. In Zulu we say, Mlomo ngathethi, his word is final. So if that was respected and we sat down as the family, as you have just alluded and said, we love the king's children, not only him only, and we recognize them equally. So the people that dealt and appointed and said, giving him the big word to say he's the king, he needs to get our blessing as well.
Now, it's important, of course, not to overstate the kind of influence that dissenting voices have. I mean, Misuzulu kaZwelithini has incredible support, and it's palpable whilst you're here in KwaZulu-Natal. The main highways, for instance, are covered in posters all alluding to this event, which is going to get underway in earnest tomorrow. In the interministerial briefing that was given yesterday, the ministers who are in charge of the program say it's all systems go. 48,000 people expected here at the stadium. The overflow at what's called the People's Park. It's essentially adjacent stadiums, if you like, because government is expecting thousands of people to want to be part of this historic moment.
I suppose the question this morning, just listening to what an uncle to the king has to say, Ayanda, is, what does all of this mean once the ceremony is completed tomorrow? Once the South African government officially recognizes him as king, those divisions in the family still exist. What does that mean for the monarchy then in the future?
I guess as we ponder a response to that question, Michelle, it shouldn't be lost to us that these disagreements are actually not new. In fact, people who've been tracking the history of the AmaZulu nation will tell you how in the past there have been a whole lot more grotesque, there's been a whole lot more violence that's characterized the divisions around who should in fact be ascending to the king, or to the throne, I beg your pardon. And whilst that may be the case, people will be at pains to also explain to you that it almost seems that those voices are losing their credibility, or their currency, perhaps that's the right term. There is a vast majority of people who are backing Misuzulu, and in fact there's enough of them for him to be able to continue with his work, his calling, as it were, because we do know that this is something that we know is almost something that he was given more than an application that he succeeded in getting. But the point I'm making is, for the most part, there are enough people, even within the AmaZulu nation, who believe that Misuzulu kaZwelithini is the man who should be on the throne. And so we shouldn't be really deterred about some of those dissenting voices, no matter how important they may seem on the face of it.